Good evening and welcome to the Monday, September 18th meeting of the Hoover City Council. It's my privilege and pleasure to welcome you into our chambers for the meeting tonight. I have asked the clerk to please call the roll.
Council President Lyda.
Here.
Council Pro-Tem Posey.
Here.
Councilmember Swiney.
Here.
Councilmember Driver. Here. Councilmember Murphy.
Present.
Councilmember Middlebrooks.
Here.
Councilmember McClinton.
Here. With the quorum present, we will call the meeting to order, and I would ask everyone to please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the pledge to be delivered by Councilor Driver.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As is typically our custom, we will turn the podium over to Mayor Mercado. I believe he has a couple of recognitions and a special announcement tonight.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate that. And we have started a tradition a few years back of recognizing our employees that have put in a significant amount of service. And I am proud to introduce tonight Heather Limbaugh. Heather, you mind coming up? Please bring Caitlin and David if you would like. Heather began her career, her 20-year career, here in September of 2003 in the Building Inspections Department as an administrative assistant. And in 2005, she moved into a very specialized area of the city in the finance department and has just done an incredibly wonderful job, starting out as a purchasing specialist and then moved on into purchasing and payroll. In 2015, she moved to revenue as an auditor. She was promoted to revenue accountant and currently serves in that capacity. And she served in most of the areas of finance in her career. She's always just shown an incredible willingness to learn, and I think what everyone would identify and kind of say about Heather is she has a fantastic work ethic, easy to get along with, just handles very difficult, complex situations in finance, and it's something that she's a self-taught woman. Heather, we appreciate how you've served the city so much. And you've done it in just an admirable way, and we're glad that you've got 20 years, and wouldn't mind if you gave us 20 more. Congratulations. Thank you. As you know, we have been on a search for a new city administrator, and I'm happy to say that after a significant search and just a lot of hard work on folks doing background checks, doing interviews, talking to folks and getting great information on someone, we landed on a really, I think, a fantastic gentleman and a fantastic family that he brings along with him, and that is Ken and his wife Kelly Grimes. Please, if y'all would come up, and if you would just stand up and let me introduce you. Ken and Kelly bring with them daughter Abby and her fiance Scout. Please come up. And daughter Caroline, and Gaines is in Orlando and couldn't quite make it up here today, but we are really grateful to have Ken as part of our team. Tremendous amount of experience, he's come full circle. He grew up in Bessemer, worked his way up through the chain, working with the chamber, working in economic development, makes his way down to Orange Beach, where he's spent over 20 years in Orange Beach and has touched really every department there in one way or another. And the thing that has impressed me about him, he's number one, he's absolutely a fine man, a fine gentleman, a wonderful family. But his experience really stood out. And we knew that we needed someone that could step in and knows the job. And I'm convinced that Ken can step in and change the name from Orange Beach to Hoover. And other than learning a few of the little idiosyncrasies and people and things of that nature, he won't be necessarily stunned by a project that he's presented with here. I was particularly impressed with the fact that he was, in Orange Beach running that show when the Exxon oil spill, the BP oil spill. Exxon probably did not appreciate me. BP oil spill, which it took a significant toll on our, the beach community. No doubt, and Orange Beach was affected in a major way. He's dealt with hurricanes, so disaster management is not the everything that we do up here. We certainly have folks in that business, but to have that knowledge and the recovery aspect is golden. He's been through Park and Rec. He understands that business. He's done economic development. He's done that business. He manages a very large staff that is seasonal at times, but can get up into the hundreds of employees. And you think about what's going on in Orange Beach, the tremendous growth of building that's gone on down there, and then you think about the 175,000 people that call it home anywhere from 2 or 3 days on vacation to all summer long. So a lot of assets. We're grateful to have him. A gentleman, quite an athlete when he was able to be an athlete. And how much he could jump. One of his friends came in and said, I can still out-jump you. We're proud to have you here. We look forward to serving with you. And I'd love for you to come up and say a few words. We've got a lot going on tonight, so a few words. Come on up and tell us a little bit about who you are and if we made the right choice. Y'all stay up if you would.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, citizens, and businesses. It's exciting. A lot of my friends and co-workers and colleagues are here, and I appreciate you being here tonight for this. It's a special place, and it's truly exciting for what we have ahead of us. It's been something through this process that I truly am blessed, and I'm blessed to have such a family that's been supportive of public service and all the things we've gone through, and hopefully all of the issues you mentioned we will deal with promptly and quickly, and hurricanes turn into tornadoes, but we'll deal with it. It's unique. This time of season we definitely watch the Weather Channel very closely. Projects, business, clean and safe. Clean and safe is number one, and you do that every day here. And from a public service standpoint and public safety of what you have from fire, police, public works, and all the other, and then the programming, unbelievable. I would say to everyone that met me a few minutes ago in the lobby, I'm not going to remember your names because there were so many people, so thank you for coming. Thank you for meeting us and the opportunity, and we're appreciative, so I look forward to getting here.
I would like to ask the council, Mr. President, if we could get a vote of affirmation for our new city administrator, and then I had a few other words to say, but I want to make it really official with their confirmation.
So we'll entertain a motion for the appointment of the new city administrator.
Mr. President, I move for the affirmation vote for the appointment of the city administrator.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
And this will be for Resolution 7035-2. Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Swiney?
Aye.
Ms. Driver? Aye. Mr. Murphy?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. McClinton?
Aye.
Mr. Lyda?
Aye. With a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays, the motion carries. Mr. Grimes, welcome to the city of Hoover.
to, before we get that picture, Mr. President, thank Mr. Alan Pate, who had a great deal of opportunity to have input here and to lead us to Ken. And Alan, thank you for what you've done. You continue to serve our city. We appreciate you.
Anybody here to support Mr. Grimes specifically? Would you like to come and join for the?
Do this one first.
Okay.
They got a budget too.
Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
I believe Chief Bentley has a recognition. Chief Bentley, if you'd like to come to the podium, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, Council, Mayor, and citizens. I just want to give you a quick update on the events that occurred, the special events that occurred week of September 5th. We had the Combat Challenge and the Memorial Stair Climb that week. And I just wanted to say a few words about what happened that week and how well it went. And the reason it went as well as it did is because of the people who work here. And I just want to say special thanks to all the firefighters and everybody who had a hand in that, but also Public Works. We had Kelly Peoples Group. I mean, there were so many people involved through the city that made that such a special event. I CC'd a letter to you today from the Executive Director of the Combat Challenge, Russell Jackson, and he could not say enough about what our folks did. And I just thought that it would be interesting and just to share that with you. Also in the letter, he said that that just through Facebook, we reached over 3 million today, 3 million viewers just on Facebook, not counting all of the other media outlets that they use. And I just wanted to say thanks to everybody and appreciate Public Works and everybody else who had something to do with that, and just say thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Ms. Bolt, you done? No, I'm sorry, Ms. Bolt, you have a recognition for the Finance Department.
Thank you, Council. Since this is my last council meeting before I retire, I wanted to take this opportunity to recognize the finance staff. We have built the best team ever over the past 3 years, and they are some of the hardest working and most fun people I've ever worked with. With the hard work and diligence of this staff, we have been able to combine positions, which saves the city over $800,000 per year. This department, or 800,000 per year. This department has been operating the past 3 years without an admin assistant. We have also been able to create upgrades and promotions that have never been done in this department, which has allowed staff to grow professionally and lead others. Some of the 3 leadership positions that we created in the past 3 years has been the Division Director of Budget and Purchasing, Claire Hamilton, if you will come up, please. Division Director of Revenue, Ken Davidson. Division Director of General Ledger and Payroll, Chip Gifford. Then the Purchasing Department, which belongs to Claire, is Tina DiClemente, Purchasing Officer. Rhonda Gaiman, Purchasing Specialist. Amanda Greer, Accounts Payable, and she has our newest employee, baby Liam, which can also say he has worked since he has been born. Payroll, Crystal Horton, Payroll Clerk. Tiffany Brewer, Payroll Specialist. General Ledger, Tammy Gilbert, Accountant. Pam Welch, accountant. And all of those belong to Chip. And then with Ken, revenue, Heather Limbaugh, her second recognition tonight, revenue accountant. Olivia Reese, revenue auditor. Jada King, revenue specialist. And not with us tonight is Virginia Foster, revenue analyst, and Andrea Cheek, accounting specialist. And this is our finance department. I just want to say, thank you all for making this job so much easier and allowing us to be able to accomplish all the things we've accomplished in the past 3 years, and for making it fun to come to work each day. I will miss each one of you. Thank you.
Ms. Bolt, on behalf of the council, I too want to recognize you. Your time here at the City of Hoover has been remarkable in what we've accomplished. Some of the policies that we have authored, especially the budget policy that we put in place, has set the city up for financial success for decades to come. And so your mark on the City of Hoover has not gone unnoticed and will continue to pay benefits and dividends to our residents and visitors and businesses for many, many years to come. So thank you and best of wishes in your retirement.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Group picture. Privileged tonight to have with us representatives of the Chamber of Commerce here for a presentation. Ms. Tony Herrera-Bass is the Executive Director of the Chamber. Ms. Herrera-Bass, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, President Lyda. Greetings, Mayor, Council President, City Councilors. Thank you for this time that you've allotted us. It is my privilege to actually introduce our 2023 Board Chair, Ms. April DeLuca, to get us started with our presentation.
Thank you, Tony. And I will echo Tony, Council, and Mayor Mercado, thank you so much for allowing us an opportunity to speak to you tonight. As Tony said, I am April DeLuca, and I am the current chair of the board for the Hoover Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm joined today by the vast majority of my board, who are all here. If you would just raise your hand if you're a member of the board. I'm also privileged to be joined tonight by our advisory council. So my advisory council, please raise your hand if you recognize. Thank you so much. And the advisory council was something that was created as these are all members who were past presidents or chairs of the board of the chamber. So they have graciously agreed to continue volunteering their time in an advisory capacity. As you all know, we are here today to make a presentation to you about Elevate Hoover. Elevate Hoover is something that the chamber has worked on for at least the past 3 years. Elevate Hoover is a proposed partnership between the City of Hoover, the Hoover Area Chamber of Commerce, and our public and private sector leaders to work collectively to market and brand initiatives, community and workforce needs, and advocacy goals and opportunities for the Hoover area. Elevate Hoover has established very near-term goals and multi-year strategic initiatives that we intend to implement by the chamber along with our other community partners. These cover 3 core areas: fostering economic growth, being the voice of business, and cultivating talent. As you all know, the chamber fills a role that is not necessarily economic development. We are hoping through Elevate Hoover that we can work in support of the city's very, very capable economic development department to help foster these economic initiatives. Elevate Hoover is proposed to be funded by public and private stakeholders through multi-year pledges. This will be 60% private funding and hopefully 40% public funding. The key thing that I want you to take away from what I'm saying to you today is that Elevate Hoover is not the chamber. The chamber is a big part of Elevate Hoover, but Elevate Hoover is something new that is going to encompass a public-private partnership, something that we don't have in Hoover right now. And I think that we can all agree that there's a need for something like that, and we're hoping that through the city's partnership, we can help provide the vehicle to accomplish these things, namely returns on investment. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening to me. I'm now going to ask my fellow board member, Mr. James Robinson, to come up and talk a little bit more about Elevate Hoover. Thank you.
Thank you, April. I believe in favor. Favor is simply God's supernatural provision that enables us to live and prosper beyond our natural abilities. To Mayor Bucato, Council President Lyda, members of the Hoover City Council, and the amazing citizens of the city of Hoover. My name is James Robinson. I'm a proud resident of the city of Hoover. I'm a current board member of the Chamber of Commerce and a retired utility executive. Thank you for this opportunity for me to offer brief remarks on why we need Elevate Hoover. Some believe that the city of Hoover has been successful in spite of itself. I too believe that to be true. We have been blessed to be among the top 2% of the best places to live in America, among the top 3% of places with the best public schools. We are among the top 30% of the most diverse cities to live in America. Yes, there is favor on the city of Hoover. I also believe that we have superb and outstanding city leadership. However, we are faced with future economic challenges that will require us to think, plan, and operate unlike we have in the past. Elevate Hoover provides us with a strategic public-private partnership roadmap that fully supports city government and our overall economic development initiatives. The traditional Chamber of Commerce's role is evolving. No longer will chambers be effective or even relevant if we do not engage in strategic areas like workforce development, talent attraction and retention, and economic vitality. Let me end my remarks with this quote from Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Judge Jackson was recently quoted when she visited our great state and city at the commemoration of the 16th Street Church bombing. She said, "The uncomfortable lessons of our past are the ones that teach us the most about our future." Thank you.
Thank you, James. That's really hard to follow up, but now it's my turn. I want to share with you how we got here. As April mentioned, it's been a 3-year process. We started out with doing a strategic plan with high performance. This was not anything we did in a vacuum. We solicited input, feedback from hundreds of business owners, city officials, and chamber members. Whether or not businesses were a member of the chamber didn't matter during this entire process. What was important, that it was citywide. Where was city going, and we wanted to be a partner. It is important to distinguish, as was distinguished before, that the proposed Elevate Hoover plan has not been developed in a bubble. It's been researched, developed, and refined by 2 consulting firms over the last 36 months, High Consulting and National Community Development Services, with a significant input not only from the Chamber Board of Directors, the City of Hoover's elected officials and the staff, but hundreds of individuals who formalize activities and through formalized activities and informally, which represent a cross-section of Hoover's public-private sector community leaders, influencers, and executive. Elevate Hoover first started out as a 3-year strategic plan. Over our program refinement and research, it has been extended to actually be a plan that we will take 5 years to undertake. Hoover's public-private sector leaders the consensus was that these private and public sector leaders, that the chamber must enhance the strategic partnership with the city to support the economic development efforts, with the chamber's leadership leading the efforts in advocacy and workforce development efforts. They must look at a present day public and private funding model to accomplish that. And that's what we're proposing today. NCGS was retained back in September of 22, conducted over 60 confidential feasibility interviews. They compared with over 100 other cities and past clients to further align the community education for operation and funding structure recommendations. They were retained in February of 23 to actually undergo, based on the recommendations, to move forward with the capital campaign. And we are starting with our public sector. A large group of meetings and private one-on-one meetings with public and private community leaders from April of 23 to July of 23. The final Elevate Hoover plan goals and budget were finalized. And as you can see on the screen, those are the 3 pillars that we identified from the very beginning and actually refined through the entire process. We're looking at cultivate talent, foster economic growth, and be the voice of business. And throughout, we have very refined and specific ROIs in the plan. I'm trying to move forward quickly so that I can actually get to the point where I will invite Tom Michelada to come up here and talk to you a little bit more about the ROI and the methodology on how we got here.
Yeah, if I could, actually, if we could just pop up just to the, I'm not quite sure, just to our blue page.
I promise I'll make it quick, because most of the council I've met with knows I can get a little bit deep in the weeds on our economic impact projections. I promise I'll make it short this evening. Thank you all for giving us the opportunity to talk to you a little bit more about Elevate Hoover. As Tony mentioned, I'm Tom Michelada. I'm with National Community Development Services. We are a firm that's been in place since 1977 and worked with about 600 communities like Hoover, building these public-private partnerships for chambers and their local municipalities. As Tony mentioned, throughout the whole process, as we started with the strategic plan, we have worked through a very detailed process that's in your packet. We gave a quick graphic to show that we didn't leave any stone unturned when we were looking at these overall plans, and we feel like our value as a firm is to show case in point examples, because if Greg were here, he would tell you, Greg Knighton would tell you that economic development's a very highly competitive force. And these public-private partnerships, typically when communities hit about 100,000 persons, is when these these are put together to make sure we're all rowing the boat in the same direction. As Tony mentioned, we have three main pillars: fostering economic growth, being the voice of business, and cultivating talent. I will mention half of our proposed budget is being allocated towards cultivation of talent, because Hoover's no different than any community in the region or any community in the US. We're all facing talent and workforce shortages, and that's where our proposed half of our budget is going for this. The graphic you see in front of you is just a quick snapshot. Again, I apologize, but we could only keep our analysis to 32 pages, so I'm sorry. But we wanted to show and be transparent in our information that what we look at for support from our public and private sector partners, that we ask them to support this based on what we feel the return on investment will be. While we're not here to guarantee it, when you're looking at one of our top goals of increasing population by almost 5%, which is about almost a little more than double what you've been doing organically, more people means more demand, means more sales. That means demand goes up in all these different sectors based on jobs. I did want to point out, if you look at your top left where it says 3,307 total new jobs, I do want to be clear that, as Tony said, we are not the lead economic development agency. Our job is, from a marketing, branding, researching, and workforce development, to make sure that we have people there to fill the jobs that Greg and your economic development department and team are creating. We feel like our efforts will bring about 1,844 folks to fill those jobs. Our analysis was prepared on the 7 core sectors that has been identified by Hoover and their Industrial Development Board at the median salary range. But I will say, when you see indirect and induced jobs, while we're not the lead agency, more people, more sales, more demand creates a ripple effect, which we use the standard equation of it's about 1.8% for Hoover of indirect and induced jobs. I use the example of Publix. Think if there's 5,000 more of us, and if you're like me and you shop at Publix, well, they're going to have more demand. They're going to need more supply. They're going to need more staff. Normally, your indirect and induced jobs are a little bit below what our full professional salary jobs are. But at the end of the day, our overall output, we feel, will be about $572 million based on people coming to the area and having a little over almost $220 million of disposable spending. Albeit, I know those numbers sound large, but if you look at total output for the Birmingham Hoover MSA, it's $1.4 trillion. New personal incomes and spending, our 219 million that we're projecting for the whole MSA, $68 billion in new spending. So while I say these are what I consider conservative numbers, because we did this analysis in 2023 dollars, we did not future value the dollar out, we didn't incorporate inflation into any of spending by 2028. That's where we feel like, from a public sector standpoint, an investment would return about $6.27 to the public sector, and about $19.78 for every dollar invested to the private sector. And I just would like to add, the reason the public sector number is lower is because, as we noted in our report, we factored out state and federal taxes, which would generate about an additional $41 million annually by 28. If I put all those in, your ROI for public sector will be about $32. But we only did it based on our investment we're asking it from the city, as well as our other partners. And again, if I could just wrap up and I'll turn it back over to them, we did provide the lengthy analysis just to show you what it is. We used InPlan, which I know Greg's not here tonight, but if he was, he would tell you it's the most widely used economic development modeling program that's used on the market today. It was actually developed by the federal government in the 70s. And helped us plug into a variety of agencies, because we utilized 15 individual government and college different resources, because there is no true Hoover-centric data sources. Even in some data we pulled from the BBA, you couldn't extrapolate that, so we had to go right to government agencies for this. So while these numbers to some might look large, we feel in the scope of the region, we're able to help drive some of that sales and that economic activity. And these initiatives are just gonna help our public and private partnership to be able to do it. Hope I kept that short enough. Some of you know I can get deep in the weeds on that. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. And again, Council and Mayor Mercado, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to speak with you about this today. Do y'all have any questions for us before we wrap this part up?
Any questions for Mr. Luca? Mr. Rare Bass? Mr. Lyda?
I do, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
So help me, first of all, I commend any organization that tries to change. I remember back in the day being a Southern Baptist church, you never had a guitar or a drum. The message does not change, but the presentation does. So I commend you all for that. Help me wrap my small intelligence around this. So from our reading here, we're going to be creating 6 new positions with this right here. And while that's admirable, you're asking for the city to do about probably $1.5 million over 5 years, $300,000 a year. Most of that, I'm assuming, is going to these salaries right here for these positions. At the end of 5 years, is it self-sustaining? Do you still need investment from the city, or is it cut off? Is there a sunset?
And so I'm going to defer to the people who know a little bit more about the numbers, but my take on that, what we are attempting to do is intended to be self-sustaining through the public-private partnerships. We're not relying 100% on public dollars. We are asking for significant investments from not only our board members, but chamber members and people who aren't even affiliated with the chamber. And I think that that's why it's important to remember, again, the funds we're asking for are not going to the chamber's operating budget. We're creating a whole new animal to bring in people that may have not had chamber affiliation before, can't be affiliated with the city for various reasons, and so Elevate Hoover can accomplish things that we can't do by ourselves, that y'all can't do by yourselves. But to your specific questions, I'm going to defer to the numbers people.
Sure.
I'll answer that. They are designed for one of two things, either one, by the end of the 5 years to have it sunset by the public sector. Keep in mind, while I appreciate you saying 1.5 million, our request is for the first year of 300,000, and we reserve the right to come back and review it with each of you, which is important. There are a couple of key pieces in it. In year 2, we're phasing in a contract grants writer to help diversify that piece from outside sources. 2 of our positions in workforce as well as public policy, standard through the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, they have 10% fundraising goals to bring in outside and diversified sources of revenue. We tend to recommend to a board that membership as well has goals of 10% for that, because in some cases we'll be packaging together dues and membership at some of the higher levels as we have. And then there's the natural, what I call 3 to 5% through investor relations and communications that we do based on our ongoing. While it's a 5-year campaign, you'll never hear us say 5 years. We're always asking for 1 year because we want to bring back our results, and we'll do that with all our investors and leadership group, as they'll all be engaged in the oversight of it. So that's what brings all our public and private sector partners together, is that we're all working in that same range.
Any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions. Well, a question and a comment. You mentioned private partnerships, private donors. How many do you have thus far?
So we have started to make some private asks, but in all transparency, of course, those partners are also looking to the city for leadership in this partnership. We just had a report on how much, do you have it?
To date, we've done if you're looking just from the private sector, we have done 13 requests totaling $840,000 of asks, including this request. Those are the private sector ones. We've evaluated about $6 million of asks. In my industry, you can't project how many we'll give or what the percentage pledged to ask. We always start with public sector because you see the impact first and quickest out of those 10 categories. As well as we had mentioned, typically in most of these firms, we recommend a 60% ask. We came in thinking more 40% based on conversations between mayor and the council we met with on that piece. Once we have this, our direction from the city, I do know that a lot of our business community have asked, well, where's the city? Think of all this. And while we did schedule some, it was mostly our talking to the majority of our board members for requests right now. And then with this in place, we're kind of full steam ahead with we think it'll take about 80 investors total. So we've got some folks to visit.
And in the comment part, you're hitting this at budget time. And I'm looking at about $300,000 worth of requests that we either held or we are waiting until we can amend the budget to fit. And some of those, especially when it comes to public safety, are based on population. We're talking about growing the population and these kind of things. You get to a point, and I understand that you're at 40%, you would have been at 60. I'm worried about 30, honestly, because as we're growing and we've got a cap of 4% citywide for a budget, we're really making hard choices on adding employees and adding things, and in some of these cases, like I'll use fire for example, they're doing transport, so the transports are bringing in revenue, so that's a definite put a person in, bring revenue in, and this is one of those things where it might work, it might not, honestly. So that's where I am as I'm looking at the things we've said no to this year in this budget and the things we have coming up in the next budget, the next budget, the next budget, as the city grows. And I wish there was a way to make your plan a 10-year plan and reduce that hit on the city each year, or maybe a 15 or a 20. That's where I am. That's my opinion. I don't know if anybody shares that up here. Or that's just where I am on that, based on looking at these numbers for the past month or so and figuring out what we have as a city to fund.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. President, just a couple comments. I think last time we had like a protocol title for the city is Hoover Happened. Do you remember Hoover Happened? Okay. At one point, and we still have a really strong tax base, Hoover represented quite a bit of funding for Jefferson County. Hoover Group, Jefferson County did extremely well. My concern has always have been, and again, not about competition, although it is about competition, folks are mimicking what we have done, right? You start looking at other cities and how the performance of the football team is, their commercial areas, their residential homes. They're really mimicking and following Hoover for what they have done, and people choose different places to be based upon that. Schools and definitely public safety drives everything a city does. That's just what the numbers say. So I'm an advocate for anything that can push growth without increasing another penny or half a penny on tax dollars. But I would say this, how this go. In the strategic plan, I would definitely want to make sure we have, at least 2-year, a bi-year and an 8-year report that definitely goes over KPIs. Every plan has to have that, and very bluntly about how this performance is, right? Also, over the years, especially if the city is considering possibly funding portions of this, we get to meet those staffing folks as well too. Any dollars we yield to another sector, we get to meet who that is represented. So those annual reports, I know about strategic plans, they subject to change, they should be evaluated annually. And I'm assuming that's going to be taking place on what I've read. So those are the type of things, Mr. President, in the event something occurs, I would definitely like to see twice. And last thing I'll say, just to ask about our Council Pro-Tem's question, 5-year plan, and definitely y'all come every year to kind of state where you're located. Any variation if that is pushed to a 6-year, or is that the model that y'all have? And any challenges if you move that model by a year, it causes a major impact from a funding standpoint?
Can you repeat your question? I'm sorry.
So right now is a 5-year plan, right? I think my fellow colleague Curt Posey asked about can it be stretched, meaning that 6-7 year versus a 5. I don't know if y'all looked at that or not. Would that cause an impact if that was the case?
That would
Okay.
cause an impact to the goals that we have established, and including hiring those positions. So we would have to go back and we would have to go back and redefine where the priorities are and what would come first. So it does impact that piece of it.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I have another question if you don't mind. Like Mr. Posey just said, this is budget season. So I know Chief Bentley, I know Moose, I know Chief Durzis, everybody here, they made an ask. They didn't get 100% of their ask, but they can still run a department. So I guess that's my question to y'all. I do want to see Elevate Hoover succeed. I want to see Hoover succeed. But the ask to me seems, can you still function this Elevate Hoover if it's not your 1.5? What if it's only half that over 5 years? Does it still work, or are you telling me this is the only way it can happen, the full amount or nothing?
No, it could still work, but I'll go to this graphic here. For the 5 years funding, 1.75 million is directed to cultivate talent. 1.1 is foster economic growth, and 650,000 is to be the voice of business. We would have to go and taper down the economic growth piece, because that some of cultivate talent. So some of those pieces where we're trying to strongly support the city, we might have to back off.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
As my colleagues have mentioned, this is budget. We all have our priorities. As Mr. Murphy has stated, schools and public safety has always driven our city. Public safety is usually the top priority for most of us for funding. And we have, as Mr. Posey pointed out, possibly 2 firefighter positions that would eventually help transport, medical emergencies being considered, but holding off until we make some of these hard decisions. In years past, when we have something that may not be immediately, you gotta have it tomorrow. We have pushed those decisions to mid-year. Instead of reducing funding that may not fit your model, how you want to see it, I might recommend that we push this for a mid-year review, see if we can fully fund it, see how we're doing economically at the time. And they're still in a position to put in the public safety positions now, and take a look at this. And that just might be a recommendation.
Any other comments or questions? Very good. Thank y'all.
Thank you.